When she walked out that night, she didn't just leave the house. She left me in ruins. It wasn't raining, but the world felt soaked anyway. I remember sitting on the edge of our bed, holding a half-packed suitcase she'd left behind, floral fabric, the kind she used to take on vacations when we still laughed together. The clock on the wall ticked so loudly it felt like it was mocking me. Tick, 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 as if counting every second since my life fell apart. I never thought my wife, Elena, would be capable of cruelty. But that night, she didn't cry, she didn't even look back. Just a soft, almost bored whisper before she left. Maybe you'll understand one day. That love isn't enough. And then she was gone, taking with her not just her things, but the savings, the car, and every shred of pride I had left. Before all that, life was ordinary, warm even. We lived in a small but cozy two-bedroom house on the edge of town. The kind with cracked white paint on the porch and a lemon tree out front. I used to come home from work to the smell of her cooking, garlic, butter, and something sweet baking in the oven. She'd hum along to old love songs while stirring the pot, and I'd watch her like a man who had everything he ever wanted. I was a high school teacher back then. History. I loved my job, the kind of love that didn't pay much, but gave meaning. Elena worked part-time at a real estate office. She was ambitious, the kind of woman who walked into a room and people noticed. She had this habit of tapping her pen against her lips when she was thinking, soft, rhythmic, hypnotic. We met at a charity fundraiser years ago. I spilled red wine on her dress, and she laughed instead of getting angry. I always thought that moment said something about her heart. That she was patient, kind, forgiving. But maybe I mistook composure for warmth. Maybe I never really knew her at all. The first cracks appeared quietly. At first, she'd come home later than usual. Just work, she'd say, sliding off her heels, her perfume sharp with something expensive I hadn't bought. Then the dinners grew silent. Her laughter disappeared like steam from the kettle, faint, vanishing before I could reach it. One evening, I found her standing in front of the mirror, staring at herself in a dress I didn't recognize. "You like it?" she asked without turning around. I said yes, but my voice came out small. She smiled, not at me but at her reflection. Around that time, she started talking about goals, things she wanted in life, bigger home, fancier car, vacations abroad. I tried to support her dreams, but each one felt like a measurement of what I wasn't. She'd say, "You're too comfortable, Daniel. You could be so much more if you just tried harder." It stung. Not because she was wrong, but because she said it like disappointment had already replaced love. Money started getting tight. I didn't realize how deep we were until the calls began. Credit cards. Late payments. She brushed it off, said she had it handled. I wanted to believe her. But one afternoon, when I got home early, I found an envelope on the kitchen table addressed to her, from a loan company I'd never heard of. That night, I confronted her. "Elena, what's this?" She barely looked up from her phone. "Just business stuff. You wouldn't understand." "Business stuff? We're married. I should understand." She sighed, tossed the phone aside. "You're making a big deal out of nothing. God, Daniel. Why do you always act like I'm doing something wrong?" I didn't have an answer. Just a feeling, one that lodged itself in my chest like a splinter. Weeks later, things got worse. She became distant, cold, methodical. Our conversations shrank to logistics. Groceries. Bills. Silence. The house felt like a museum of what used to be love. Then one Friday evening, she said she was going to a conference. I remember standing by the window, watching her drive off, the taillights glowing red as they turned the corner. Something in me whispered, "She's not coming back." I was right. She didn't. The next morning, I woke to a text. "I'm sorry, Daniel. I can't do this anymore. Don't call me. No explanation. No closure. Just emptiness, cold and clean." When I checked the joint account, it was empty. She had taken it all. The savings we'd built for a future that no longer existed. I spent days in a fog, barely eating, barely sleeping. The walls of our home seemed to close in tighter each night. Her things were gone, but her scent lingered in the sheets. That soft floral perfume. It haunted me. Friends told me to move on. My parents said, "Maybe she'll realize what she lost." But she didn't. Instead, I received divorce papers in the mail, signed and dated weeks before she left. That was the day I realized she'd planned it. Every lie, every cold glance, every late night, all of it had been leading to this moment. And I had been too blind to see it. I lost everything, the house, the savings, even my self-worth. For months, I slept in my car, showered at the gym, and took extra classes at school to keep myself busy. But inside I was empty, angry. Some nights I'd stare at my reflection in the rearview mirror, whispering to myself, "She left you for dead." And every time, the words sank deeper. But what I didn't know then, what she never expected, was that in the ashes she left behind, I'd find fire. I don't remember the day the sadness turned into anger. It didn't happen all at once. It was slow, like watching a wound scab over and realizing you've stopped bleeding. One morning, I was parked outside a coffee shop, my makeshift office, grading papers on my laptop. The manager, an old man named Jim, noticed how often I came in. He'd slide a free muffin my way sometimes, saying, "You look like you could use a win today." He wasn't wrong. That day, while I scrolled through my emails, something unexpected appeared. A message from a former colleague of Elena's at the real estate firm. It read, "I'm sorry to hear what happened between you two. I never thought she'd do that to you, especially after everything he did for her." I read it twice. There was no name, no explanation, just a word, small, but sharp enough to split the quiet in half. I tried to ignore it, told myself it didn't matter. But the mind doesn't let go of questions like that easily. Who was he? That night, I went back to the old house, the one she'd left. It was technically still in my name, but the locks had been changed after the divorce proceedings began. I sat outside for a long while, engine off, staring at the windows. I half expected to see her shadow. Instead, I saw a light flicker inside. For a moment, I thought it was a trick of the street lamp. But then movement. Someone walking across the living room. I got out of the car, heart pounding. And there she was, Elena, inside our home, wearing a silk robe I'd never seen before, moving comfortably as if she'd never left. And she wasn't alone. A tall man, clean-shaven, expensive shirt, holding a glass of wine, leaned close to her. He touched her back the way I used to, possessively, gently. They laughed. My chest went hollow. I backed away before they could see me. My hands trembled as I turned the key in the ignition. The tires crunched against the gravel like bones. So this was it. The he from that email wasn't a mystery anymore. He was real. And she was living in my house with him. For days I couldn't focus. My job, my students, the world, it all blurred into meaningless noise. I kept replaying that moment over and over. Her laughter. His touch. The wine glasses. The silk robe. Then the humiliation hit. Everyone must have known before I did. Her colleagues. Maybe even our friends. And I was just the fool who thought she'd lost herself. But buried beneath the pain, something else began to stir. A quiet, deliberate resolve. I went to a lawyer. A woman named Grace. Middle-aged, calm, eyes sharp like a hawk's. She looked over the divorce papers and frowned. "Did you sign these willingly?" she asked. "I did," I said quietly. I wasn't thinking straight. "Well, Daniel, you might not have realized it, but she left out a few important disclosures. Assets. Transfers." She tapped a page with her pen. "She moved money into a private account before the filing. That's fraud." I felt my pulse quicken. "What can I do?" Grace smiled faintly. "Start digging." For the next few weeks, I became a man possessed. Between teaching classes, I spent every spare minute gathering old records, emails, receipts. It was like piecing together a puzzle, except each piece made the betrayal worse. Turns out, months before she left, Elena had started a side business with that man. His name was Marcus Lang, her real estate manager. They'd been flipping houses together, using our savings as capital. My savings. Worse, the house I'd once called ours had been refinanced, right before she left. The equity had been drained to fund their business. She hadn't just left me. She'd used me as her starting line. I confronted her once. Not in person, but over the phone. It was late. My voice shook, but I tried to sound calm. "Elena, I know about Marcus. There was a pause, long cold. Then a laugh. I was wondering how long it'd take you. You used me. You stole from me. Don't be dramatic, Daniel. I built something real. Something you never could. With my money. With our money. And for once, it's actually making something of itself. Her words cut deeper than any lie. I loved you, I said quietly. I would have helped you if you'd just asked. She sighed. That's the problem, Daniel. I didn't want your help. I wanted out. And just like that, click. The line went dead. After that call, I stopped trying to understand her. People like Elena don't break your heart in one clean blow. They chip away until there's nothing left but dust, and then they blame you for being hollow. But here's the strange thing about hitting bottom. Once you've lost everything, you finally have nothing left to fear. So I started small. I left my job at the school. The principal thought I was crazy, walking away from stability, but I couldn't keep standing in front of kids talking about empires and revolutions, while I'd lost my own. With the last of my savings, I rented a tiny office downtown, one room, peeling wallpaper, a single desk. And I started teaching something new, private tutoring for business students. I wasn't planning an empire back then. I just needed something to remind myself I still had worth. But life has a way of rewarding persistence, quietly, gradually, then all at once. One of my first students was a young woman named Priya. Her father owned a small logistics company. After a few months, she introduced me to him, said he needed help restructuring his operations. I hesitated. I'd never done business consulting before. But I said yes. That decision would change everything. By the end of that year, I'd tripled his revenue. Word spread fast. A few more clients came in, then a few more. I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was building. And all the while, I could feel something shifting inside me. A kind of quiet power, born from pain, patience, and persistence. I didn't know it yet, but I was planting the first seeds of something far greater than revenge. I was rebuilding myself. By the second year after Elena's departure, my life looked almost unrecognizable. The tutoring business had turned into a small consultancy. I had clients across 3 cities, 2 part-time assistants, and a modest apartment with sunlight that felt clean. For the first time in years, I could breathe without thinking of her. Or at least I thought I could. Then one afternoon in early spring, something changed. A former neighbor, Mrs. Collins, called me out of the blue. Her voice trembled with curiosity. Daniel, dear, I saw your wife, well, ex-wife, I suppose. She was at the grocery store with a little boy. He called her mom. I froze. Elena had always said she didn't want children, not with me anyway. But a child? How old was he? I asked, trying to sound casual. Oh, about 4, maybe 5. 4. That would mean she'd been pregnant right around the time she left me. My mind went silent. Then it began replaying every moment from that last year. The fatigue, her secrecy, the sudden mood swings. Things I'd dismissed as stress. What if that child? No, it couldn't be mine. She would have told me. Wouldn't she? I needed answers. And this time, I wasn't going to watch from the sidelines. I hired a private investigator. A quiet man named Victor who asked few questions and promised fewer explanations. He began tailing Elena and Marcus. A week later, I had photos. There she was, Elena, walking through a park, holding the boy's hand. Marcus followed behind, carrying a kite. They looked like the perfect family. But it was the boy's face that stopped me cold. Dark hair. Gray-blue eyes. A small scar on his chin. Exactly where I had one from a bicycle accident when I was 7. I stared at that photo for hours, every rational thought in my head collapsing under the weight of a single, unbearable truth. He looked like me. I met Victor again 2 days later in a cafe. He slid an envelope across the table. You were right to be suspicious, he said. I did some digging. The birth certificate lists the father as unknown. No DNA record. I clenched my jaw. And Marcus? He's been using your old address for mail forwarding. Some of it ties back to property under both their names, but you'll want to see this. He handed me another sheet, a bank statement. There it was again, my name. A transfer from my old joint account, made months after the divorce, funneled into their business. She hadn't just stolen my money. She'd stolen my identity. That night, I couldn't sleep. I sat at my desk, staring at the city lights outside my window. It wasn't just betrayal anymore. It was theft, deceit, and maybe something even darker. And then my phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. "Stop digging, Daniel. You'll regret it." My heart pounded. I knew it was Marcus. Only he would know I was looking into them. For the first time, I felt a flicker of fear. But it was immediately followed by something stronger, defiance. If he thought I'd stop now, he didn't know me at all. I went back to Grace, my lawyer, and showed her everything. The bank statements, the photo, even the text message. She read in silence, then looked up. "This is bigger than a divorce case now. This is criminal fraud, maybe even identity theft. What do we do?" She leaned back, tapping her pen. "We build a case. Quietly. And when it's ready, we strike all at once." For months, I gathered everything: witness statements, transaction logs, contracts. Grace's team worked behind the scenes, freezing accounts one by one. Elena didn't even know it was happening. Until the day she got served. I still remember that morning vividly. She called me furious. "Daniel, what the hell have you done?" "Just taking back what's mine," I said evenly. "You ruined everything." "No, Elena. You did." There was silence, a sharp, breathless pause. Then her voice cracked. "You think you're so righteous. But you don't know what really happened. Then tell me." She hesitated. I could hear the tears in her voice now. Real, or maybe just another performance. "I was pregnant, Daniel. I didn't tell you because I was scared. You wanted control. Over me, over everything. Marcus helped me get away." "By stealing from me?" "I did what I had to." Her words twisted like a knife. "So the boy?" "Yes," she said quietly. "He's yours." My breath caught. "Then why lie about everything?" "Because you would have never let me leave if you'd known. You would have held him against me." I almost laughed, bitter, hollow. "Elena, I didn't need to hold anyone. You already left before I could even ask why." And just like that, she hung up again, the same way she had years before. Only this time I didn't feel broken. I felt empty. When the court hearings began, the truth unfolded piece by piece. The fraudulent accounts. The money laundering under Marcus's firm. Even the falsified property records. Marcus was arrested within weeks. Elena wasn't charged, not directly, but she lost everything. Her license. Her reputation. Her business. And me? I got my life back. My savings. My name. And after a paternity test, the one thing I never expected: a son. His name is Caleb. The first time I met him, he was shy, clutching a toy truck, eyes wary. I knelt down, smiled, and said softly, "Hey, buddy. I'm Daniel." He looked up at me and whispered, "Mom says you're my dad." I swallowed hard. That's right. It wasn't easy. He'd grown up with stories that painted me as the villain. But kids, they have an instinct for truth. Slowly he began to trust me. We'd meet every weekend. Build model cars. Feed ducks. Talk about dinosaurs. And every time he smiled, I saw a reflection of the life I'd thought I'd lost forever. One evening after dropping him off, I saw Elena waiting outside. She looked older. Tired. The arrogance was gone. "Thank you," she said quietly. "For what?" "For not keeping him from me." I nodded. "He deserves both of us, not our war." She smiled faintly. "You've changed. So have you." There was a long pause. Then she whispered, "Do you ever regret it? Us?" I thought about it, really thought about it. "No," I said finally. "Because losing you taught me who I really was." That night I sat by the window again, same city lights, different man. I realized something profound. Revenge had never been the goal. Reclaiming my peace was. And I'd done it, piece by piece, day by day. Some people destroy you to see what you're made of. But if you're lucky, if you're patient, you rise from the ruins stronger than they ever imagined. It's strange how silence can feel full. The kind that doesn't ache anymore. The kind that just is. That's how my mornings feel now. The coffee pot gurgling softly in the kitchen, sunlight spreading slow across the counter, the faint laughter of Caleb echoing from the next room as he watches his cartoons. It's a kind of peace I used to think only existed in movies. But I built it, brick by brick, scar by scar. After the trial, people expected me to gloat. They thought I'd want to see Elena humiliated, punished. But I didn't. When you've been to the bottom, really to the bottom, where you question your worth, your sanity, even your right to keep breathing, vengeance loses its taste. Peace becomes the only luxury you crave. And peace doesn't come from hurting others. It comes from finally forgiving yourself. I remember one afternoon, a few months after everything settled. I was working from home, drafting a business plan for a startup mentorship program, something I'd dreamed of doing when I was still tutoring. Caleb came into my office holding a drawing. "Daddy, look. It's us." He'd drawn 2 stick figures, one tall, one small, standing in front of a blue house. The taller one had a big smile and a cup of coffee in his hand. I laughed. "That's me, huh?" He nodded proudly. "You're happy now." Those 3 words hit harder than anything I'd ever heard. I wasn't the man who'd been left behind anymore. I wasn't the man clawing through ashes. I was happy. Over time, Elena and I found something close to civility. We shared custody peacefully. We talked, not as lovers or enemies, but as 2 people who had finally accepted the wreckage between them and decided not to live in it anymore. One evening, she stopped by to pick up Caleb. She looked around my apartment. The plants, the books, the framed photo of me and our son at the park. "You really did it," she said quietly. "Did what?" "Built your life again." I smiled. It was never gone. Just buried. She nodded slowly. "I'm glad you found yourself." For the first time since our divorce, I believed she meant it. Sometimes I wonder what might have happened if she'd never left. Would I still have found the courage to become who I am now? Probably not. It took losing everything, love, pride, money, even my sense of self, to learn that sometimes destruction isn't the end. It's the beginning you never knew you needed. One weekend, Caleb and I visited the beach. He ran ahead, chasing seagulls, his laughter bright against the sound of the waves. I sat on the sand, watching him, remembering the man I used to be. The one who thought love was about ownership, that success was about proving something to someone else. Now I know better. Love isn't possession. It's presence. And success, it's simply peace of mind. Caleb came running back, breathless. "Dad, look what I found." He held out a small, broken seashell, its edges rough but shimmering in the sun. "It's beautiful," I said. "But it's cracked." "Yeah," I smiled. "But that's what makes it special. It survived." He grinned, proud of his discovery, and tucked it carefully into his pocket. I watched him run back to the waves, and in that moment I realized, that's me. Cracked. Changed. But still shining. Later that evening as we drove home, he fell asleep in the back seat. The sunset painted the sky gold and crimson, and for the first time in years, I felt no anger, no bitterness, no hunger for justice. Just gratitude. Because she had left me for dead. But in the ashes I'd built my empire, not of money or revenge but of peace. I don't know what the future holds. Maybe Elena will find her own redemption. Maybe I'll fall in love again someday. Or maybe my purpose now is simply to raise this boy to be kinder than both of us were. Whatever it is, I'll meet it with open hands. Because I've learned that sometimes, the worst heartbreaks don't destroy you, they refine you. And if you're patient enough to stand in the ruins someday, you'll see that every wound was just clearing space for something better to grow. You know, people always ask me, how did you forgive her? How did I let go of the woman who tore my life apart? The truth is, I didn't forgive her for her sake. I forgave her for mine. Because holding on to pain, it's like drinking poison and waiting for the other person to die. It burns you from the inside, quietly, until there's nothing left of who you used to be. And one day, I just decided I'd had enough of burning. Forgiveness isn't about pretending the hurt never happened. It's about saying, yes, it happened, and it changed me, but it doesn't own me anymore. For a long time, I thought my story ended when she walked out that door. But it didn't. It just shifted from being about survival to being about becoming. I became a father who shows his son that strength isn't loud, it's steady. I became a man who knows that love, real love, never demands you shrink yourself to fit someone else's comfort. And I became someone who can finally look at his past without flinching. If you're listening to this and you've been broken, by betrayal, by loss, by someone who promised to stay and didn't, I want you to remember this. You are not what happened to you. You are what you choose to become after it. Sometimes the people who bury us think we're gone for good. But they forget, we're seeds. And seeds don't die in the dark. They grow. So yes, she left me for dead. But from the ashes, I built my empire. And it's made not of walls or wealth, but of peace, purpose, and a little boy's laughter filling my home. Would you have forgiven her? Or walked away for good? Tell me in the comments. And if this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Because somewhere out there, someone else is standing in their own ashes, waiting to believe that they too can rise. Maybe your story will be the one that reminds them they can.